Good morning. Welcome to the Public Service Commission. On the calendar this morning, we have a hearing involving docket number 2020-234T. It's an application of Carolina Procurement Institute Incorporated for a Class C Household Goods Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. We will start with a roll call of commissioners. Commissioner Williams.
Attending virtually.
Commissioner Caston.
Present virtually.
Commissioner Irvin.
Present virtually.
Commissioner Thomas.
Present virtually.
Chairman Williams is on military leave. Commissioner Powers.
Present virtually.
I'm Commissioner Belser, and I am present in the hearing room. Ms. Hill, would you read the docket, please?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and Commissioners. We are here today for the proceeding in docket 2020-234T, which is the application of Carolina Procurement Institute Incorporated for our Class C Household Goods Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. This hearing has been scheduled and noticed for 10 a.m. on Thursday, December 17th in the Commission's hearing room. Due to the public health concerns and the COVID-19 pandemic, this proceeding is being conducted virtually. It's my understanding that all parties are present with their prospective witnesses and ready and available virtually, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. We'll now take appearances from the party. Who's representing the applicant, Carolina Procurement Institute Incorporated?
Selena DeSoe here for Gary Washington.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you, Ms. DeSalle. And who is here for the Office of Regulatory Staff?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Jenny Pittman for ORS.
And I don't think we have any other interveners. I do want to ask all party attorneys particularly and commissioners if you would identify yourself before speaking or asking questions. We have a new court reporter today, and she doesn't recognize voice. She won't be able to recognize voices or faces on the video. So if you want to be recognized, please state your name. Any preliminary matters before we begin the testimony? Okay. Ms. DeSalle, would you like to present your case, please?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, I'd like to call Mr. Washington.
Okay, Mr. Washington, would you state your name?
Yes, good morning. Yeah.
Would you state your name?
Gary Washington, good morning.
Good morning. Now, the court reporter will give you the oath to swear you in, please.
Mr. Washington, can you hear me? If you will
Yes, I can.
If you'll raise your right hand.
There's a bit of delay.
Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
You can put your hand down, Mr. Washington, and Ms. DeSalle, you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Washington, how are you affiliated with Carolina Procurement Institute?
Carolina Procurement Institute is a small business that I own. I'm the president.
And how long have you been in business?
For 22 years.
How many people do you currently employ?
Only myself, one.
And why have you filed this application?
I filed applications so we would be able to pursue business in South Carolina for our E-Class license, through our E-Class license, moving.
Can you repeat that, Mr. Washington? I wasn't able to hear that.
Yes. I filed the application so that we would be able to be awarded our E-Class license to do logistics in South Carolina or to move household goods.
What is the primary focus of your business?
Mainly government contracts, Fort Jackson, Shaw Air Force Base, moving household goods and Italian.
What, if any, plans do you have to expand your business?
I would like to go ahead and get the website marketing accomplished and also pursue hazardous waste certification.
What, if any, areas of potential growth have you identified?
PRISM, University of South Carolina, MUSC, McLeod Hospital, moving of goods for them.
And as far as your experience goes, you indicated that you have 22 years of experience in this industry.
Yes, I do, and management of personnel.
And you've had a license before, is that correct?
I have had a license before, yes.
Are there any outstanding court orders or judgments against you or your company?
Yes, I have a current outstanding judgment, and we're in dispute against it.
Do you hold any other certificates or licenses for moving services?
Yes, the federal government, through South Carolina Department of Transportation, has provided a DBE certification, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise certification, to move household goods.
To the best of your knowledge or recollection, have there been any complaints filed against you, your organization, or your company?
No.
Where did you publish your notification?
The publishing of the notification was in the state paper.
Have you had an opportunity to receive an insurance quote?
I have, through Affordable Insurance Solutions, and they've given me a quote through Progressive Insurance.
Do you recall the amount, do you recall the policy amount your quote was based on?
Yes, for liability, $750,000 coverage. Cargo was $100,000 coverage, and cargo is $2,500.
Do you recall the minimum for non-hazardous materials?
Yes, the minimum is $500,000 and $10,000 for less than 10,000 pounds, and $750,000 for above 10,000 or more.
And how much cargo insurance are you required to carry?
$2,500 in cargo insurance.
Have there been any changes to your financial statement submitted during the application process?
Yes, I had to correct an error on page 3 of 10 to match the actual current statement in the application.
What, if any, methodologies did you go about to do you use to set your rate schedule?
I base my rate schedule upon the market assessment, other carriers, and for many years, the actual market value that sustains the company.
And do you believe that those rates are comparable to the prevailing rates in the area?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
What, if any, foreseeable rate changes do you see in the future?
We have none. There won't be any kind of increases to our rate.
Does your schedule of tariffs lay out transportation costs, rates, and minimum charges?
Yes, it does.
Do you have, what, if any, plans do you have to expand or add staff?
We would like to hire between 3 and 7 employees once we get started. The market calls for.
And do you have a training manual?
No, not at this time. I'm working on getting one put together.
And as far as territory is concerned, what counties do you plan to serve?
I like to serve all 46 counties in South Carolina.
And do you understand that if approved, you'll be limited to those areas?
Yes, I do.
What kind of equipment do you currently have?
We have commercial grade dollies and straps and padding and boxes and packaging materials for moving.
And what, if any, plans for growth or expansion do you have as far as your fleet is concerned?
My intentions are to purchase the 2009 GMC, the 20-foot box truck, and outfit it.
And how do you plan to manage the maintenance on your fleet?
I would probably most likely go under a contract with a maintenance organization that can maintain the vehicle.
And does your company have a schedule that it will use to ensure the safety and maintenance of the equipment?
Not at the time, but we will engage one, yes, as soon as we obligate and get the truck.
Is there a standard procedure in place for each move conducted?
Yes, there is.
I have no further questions for this witness.
Thank you, Mr. Dow. Ms. Pittman, any questions?
Jenny Pittman for ORS. We have no questions.
Thank you, Ms. Pittman. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Washington?
Madam Chair, this is Phil Powers.
Commissioner Powers.
Thank you. Mr. Washington, thank you for your testimony today. I have a couple of questions. Are you going to have, obviously, employees, or you pick up workers per trip, or how do you plan on operating as far as loading and unloading?
Our intentions are to have employees trained and out uniformed.
Okay. Are you willing to make workers' compensation insurance part of this application for your own protection?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. This judgment against you, it's rather sizable, and there's a mention somewhere in the notes about you are appealing the judgment. Is that what your appeal is about, is this judgment?
Yes, it is.
And is that appeal still open and timely? I mean, it's an old judgment.
Our attorney is putting together the portion, the balance and portion of submission to the court as we speak. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I've been a lawyer for a long time, and to me, an appeal sometimes can be like putting toothpaste back in a tube. It's not something you can depend on. Do you not consider this judgment to be a liability against your company?
I do not at this time, no, sir.
Okay. You understand that interest rate is running. It's just going to go up.
Yes, I do.
Okay. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Powers. Commissioners, any other questions?
Madam Vice Chair, this is Commissioner Caston.
Commissioner Caston, please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Washington.
Good morning.
Couple of questions. On the, I guess, page 3 of the amended application, what exactly did you correct, as, I guess, relative to the assets and liabilities? It appears to show the same number, 572,700 for assets and 124,500 liabilities.
I think that was updated. And it should read zeros. Do you have that, Attorney Giselle?
I
I am
don't
pulling it up.
see it. So what should?
I didn't hear that. The number should be 0.
Which number is
For
that?
the assets? Yes, sir.
Asset,
And also the
assets.
liability.
Okay, the assets should be 0.
And the liability should be 0.
So, the amended application should indicate that the assets are 0 and that the liabilities are $0.
Correct.
You mentioned a 2000 GMC truck on page 5. Do you have that truck?
Not at the time. We have a quote for it, and that's upon approval by the commission. We would engage the truck purchase as well as the insurance and a couple of business lines as far as U-line for supplies, so we would be able to get started.
Okay. And notice also there's a bankruptcy filing. What's the status of that?
That bankruptcy status has been dismissed. There's no bankruptcy in my name or the company.
So the outstanding judgment, again, you do not count as a liability.
I do not, sir.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Caston. Any other commissioners?
Madam Vice Chair Belzer, this is Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good to meet you, Mr. Washington. I read in the original application, and then I heard you talk some about hazardous materials and transporting them. And I'm kind of new to this area, so my questions are more kind of procedural and timing-wise. Would you talk me through what your plan is in terms of getting approval for this company, and then when you would begin to focus on hazardous materials? Because at this point in the application, that's not part of what we're considering, but yet you've talked about it. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The plan is to, upon approval, to go ahead and to execute bid opportunities, evaluating those and submitting those for 3 to 5 year contracts with the federal government and the state, and with major corporations. About a year down the road, we would like to address hazardous waste material movement. By that time, we should have a strong enough base of equipment as well as the regulations compliant. but that's not immediate. That's somewhere down the road. That's just a forecast that we would like. Mainly, we would focus in bidding on projects, executing that work, and serving the community, the state of South Carolina.
Great, that makes sense. You'll be building your success, and then you'll come back and apply for the hazardous waste portion of your permit. My next question is on page 5 of 10, the GMC. It says in the right-hand column, empty weight, and then you've got 2 different numbers. Tell me about those 2 numbers. What do they mean?
Okay. Those numbers should be changed or corrected. The empty weight is how much the vehicle weighs itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's between 10 and 12,000 pounds. That's what the vehicle weighs. And then once it is loaded fully, then it can go up to 8 to 10,000 pounds. Then when we take it across a scale, a weight scale that they would have on Shaw Air Force Base or in the community, we pay a fee for that, and they would evaluate the truck size and year, make, and model and determine this is how much the truck weighs based on its manufactured plant weight, and then the difference between what it would weigh at the time of loading or being filled. And they would determine, they'd subtract those 2 figures, and that's what the gross weight would be. So looking at the empty weight, if in fact we had the weight there properly, it should be 12,500, and then that other one should be 18,000. The numbers are correct, but the commas are incorrect. If you see what
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So if we were looking at that one, it would be the difference between 12,500 pounds, the gross weight, versus 18,000 pounds. And then that would be what it would be, the actual cargo weight. And then that's how we would determine.
And has your application been amended to reflect the empty weight?
I do believe it has been deleted, this actual vehicle and the weight, yes.
Okay. My apologies then. And then I think my last question had to do with the scope, and it was based on your the insurance statement indicated that you were going to travel 100 miles, a maximum of 100 miles from Columbia, and that they based the insurance on that, but yet your application is statewide and the location that you're based in, the address is Columbia. So I just wanted to see if will you be restricted by the 100-mile, or do you need insurance to cover other parts of the state?
What would normally take place is that our base would be from Sumter, and from that location we would give out our rates that would be within 100 miles, and that's one way, not all the way round trip. And then if there to be a difference, if it was more than that, then what we would do is we'd have to go back and determine how that would actually happen. Because normally the federal government puts a contract together. Most of our business is commercial. And once it's obligated, it doesn't matter if it's 100 miles or 20 miles, that is what the fee will be. But in my document here, our radius is 100 miles that we will be pursuing.
Okay. And so then when I'm looking in your tariff, I'm seeing round trip miles that you would charge based on with the, up to 250-mile travel charge. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, yes, ma'am. So we would need to adjust that from what would be round trip. It would be round trip versus one way. One way would be half of 250.
Right. Okay, I do have another question. 2.9, your holdover charges. You talk about 3 nights and you'll go into storage until delivery is scheduled. I don't know if this is a detail that you need to think about, but would you charge for storage in that circumstance when you go beyond the 3 nights?
What we would do is we'd actually have the contract where we would have to unload it to a location of the customer's desire, and they would take it over. But no, we wouldn't go over 3 days.
So you wouldn't need a charge. And perhaps this has already been amended, but your tariff, it looks like there's an extra, the bill of lading, might be an extra number in your phone number. And then the address is also Columbia. So do you want to reflect?
That's been amended.
Okay.
That has been amended.
I'm sorry. I wish I'd been looking at that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Any other commissioners? Okay. Mr. Sal, I have some housekeeping matters that I would like to get taken care of before I ask some questions of the witness. There have been some references to the original application and the revised application. Do you wish to offer those into the record?
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
Okay, the original application will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit number 1 and received into the evidence of this case. Ms. Pittman, if you have any objection, you need to let me know as we are proceeding, if you would. The revised application will be marked for identification as hearing exhibit number 2 and received into the evidence of this case. Let's see. Or, we'll get to that. There is a revised tariff that was filed this morning, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. Well, there was a revised tariff and amended bill of lading filed yesterday. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That will be a composite exhibit. The revised tariff and amended bill of lading will be a composite exhibit marked for identification as hearing exhibit number 3 and received into the evidence of this case. There's also Mr. Washington's pre-filed testimony. Would you like the written testimony entered into the record as well?
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
Okay, Mr. Washington's pre-filed testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand. Is there any other documentation that I've missed, Ms. DeSalle?
Your Honor, we also filed shipper witness testimony and an affidavit of the shipper witness.
Okay, we'll take up that after he gets off the stand, if you would. We'll get to that in just a second. Anything, I got so many people. Go ahead. My counsel is. Okay, there's also amended testimony from Mr. Washington, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, the amended testimony reflects that he is seeking statewide coverage.
Okay, do you want both of them in there or just the amended testimony?
The amended one should suffice, Your Honor.
Okay,
Remaining,
so let's clarify that previous inclusion of the pre-filed testimony to be only the amended pre-filed testimony will be entered into the record. Thank you. Okay, now, Mr. Washington, I have a couple of questions, if we could. I think I'm looking at the bill of lading that was electronically filed on December 16th at 7:22 p.m. That shows an address of Kingstree. Now, your application shows the company's address as Columbia, shows your address, and I believe Ms. Washington, as Sumter. And the bill of lading is Kingstree. Tell me the address of the business.
The business address is King Street.
Okay, that was not changed in the amended application, was it?
Yes, Your Honor, it was.
All right, I apologize. I've got so many things going on here. Okay, thank you very much. So that's going to be Kingstree. Thank you. Also, on the bill of lading, do you set forth any terms and conditions with your bill of lading? A lot of times a bill of lading will have terms and conditions on the back so that the customer has those in front of them. Does yours
Well-
have terms and conditions? I just want to make sure I'm not missing something.
No, Your Honor, it does
No,
not.
ma'am.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. Now, tell me, you've testified you've got 22 years' experience in the industry. Can you tell me about that experience, what you've done, where you've worked in the moving industry? Just give me an overview of that experience, if you would.
Yes, ma'am. Initially, I was in the Air Force in contracting. So I wrote service and construction contracts, and we did quite a bit of logistics. Got out of the military, and I started my own small business, downtown Columbia, where we wrote contracts with Fort Jackson, Shaw Air Force Base, to actually go and evaluate their facilities and move their everything except for weapons and food. So we had a contract with Fort Jackson to move battalions at a time. So they would contact us on a contract, a 5-year contract, 3-year contract. And we would go out and do an assessment of the equipment that would be necessary, what they wanted to be moved, where they wanted it to be moved, and what procedures we needed to go through as far as security to go on to the military installation. So we would actually go on the base with a documentation of forms to evaluate how many personnel we would need, how many boxes, how many crates, how many dollies or vehicles. Once that assessment was done, we would verify that with the using activity. Contracting would give us approval, and then we would move those items, and then we would invoice for that. Then at one time, I worked for UPS as a first-line supervisor, where we would actually have the 18-wheelers come in Sumter, South Carolina, break down the vehicles in the sense of determining what was technical equipment, what was hard material. And I was a supervisor over stocking 40 vehicles, trucks, and then the personnel, the drivers would come in and we'd give them their safety briefing, and they would be dispatched. We would monitor them, or I would monitor them through our system, UPS, and then from there, they would deliver all their packages. Then I also worked in the customer service area where we would have to evaluate if there was any problems and how we would make corrections to that. And then from there, Shaw Air Force Base gave us a call and said that we would like to do business with a minority-owned firm because our numbers for federal government spending is not where they wanted it. So they set aside a contract for our company at the 20th Squadron of Shaw Air Force Base, and we moved base housing, individuals from 3-star generals to the military installation to the retirees, to the one-stripers, to whomever was coming to the military base as far as their household goods. And we would answer to Shaw Air Force Base contracting. And oftentimes, the ordinary minority-owned business could not compete because one of the requirements to move equipment, commercial equipment, and household goods for the government is to have and own or operate a warehouse. Where Shaw Air Force Base separated our contract from having the requirement of having a warehouse. Therefore, we could compete with our competitors, Nelson Van and Storage, Mayflower, some of the major corporations. So we had to not only pack up the materials, household goods, and deliver them with a contentment sheet or obligation from the user, the homeowner, to say we did a good job and get that back to the military installation to satisfy our requirements. So we had a little bit more stringent requirements to fulfill because we did not have a warehouse. But we kept that contract and did very well with it. And then the Housing Authority, which is the last one, is Greensville Housing Authority. They had some major floods, and they wanted to renovate all of their housing. So they contacted us, and we had a year contract where we would go in and move the individuals out of their homes while they were in their home packing up, and they would move them to hotels, and then we would store their equipment where they want, or their household goods where the Greenville Housing Authority asked us to. And then we would load that back up when it was time for them to move back in and deliver it with 0 rating as far as damages are concerned. I've had contracts with University of South Carolina, moving their equipment and dormitories, as well as with MUSC, Medical University of Charleston, and also a training where we actually sit down and explain to small business owners how you go ahead and get contracts with the federal government. So a great deal of my experience have been hands-on to ensure that the customer was satisfied, but ultimately we answered to a written-out contract from the federal government.
Okay. Couple of questions, and I appreciate the detail you provided in that explanation. Are you wanting to just do these kind of contract work, or are you going to be serving the population at large as well?
We would like to have the approval to move the population at large, but our concentration is actually commercial with federal government, because for the most part, that's where our what we call wheelhouse, our expertise is at. But we have had contracts where we would go down and move military individuals into apartments that they would move into and also leave. So we're very familiar with how the commercial side works as well.
Well, when you go and move a military person like you just described, is that pursuant to the military contract, or would that be just who's booking that, the military or the individual?
We had sometimes the individual would book it, and sometimes the military would book it. The military would give an allowance, a certain amount of funds to an individual. They call it a ditty move. It's like they give them a certain amount of money to move, and they could either move it themselves or they can pay someone. But we were on the preferred list. But then also was a government contract that said, okay, hey, this household needs to be moved at this date. You pick up on base housing. You have to have security passes. We're going to evaluate your vehicle, be here at 8 o'clock, so forth. It was very stringent. So it was two methodologies, and the people were military, but oftentimes they could actually call themselves and engage our services, which would be not under the government contract.
And does the government contract, if you get the contract with Shaw or Fort Jackson or even USC or MUSC, do those contracts require you to have the household good licensing here in South Carolina?
No, they did not.
Okay.
They do not.
They don't require you to have all necessary licenses to operate within the state?
Not at the time when we did it before, no, ma'am.
Okay.
And
All right. In questioning by your lawyer, there was a term used about the minimum charges in the tariff. Now, you understand that those charges in the tariff are the charges that you have to charge. There's no minimum about it. You have to abide by those charges that you've set forth in the tariff. Do you understand that?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I do.
And you've testified that your bankruptcy case has been dismissed?
Yes, ma'am.
And that the appeal on the judgment is, your lawyer is working on that, but that was, the information we were given, that's not Ms. DeSalle, that's a different lawyer, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. DeSalle, I'd like to ask for a late filed exhibit. Would you please provide something from the bankruptcy court indicating that that bankruptcy has been dismissed? And,
Yes, Your Honor, I will.
and something from the appellate court indicating that the status of the appeal, that this paper, because the paperwork that was submitted, it doesn't have an appellate court number, the certificate of service isn't signed, it doesn't show that it's been clocked in at the court at all. So, we need something showing the status of that, appeal, if you would. And
Yes.
that'll be hearing exhibit number 5, and, this quicker you can get that in, we can't take this up for consideration until we get that filed with us, if you would.
Yes. And I do want to clarify, I'm not certain if anything has been filed. I do know that an attorney has been retained, and she is in fact, working on getting both, getting complaints, drafted and filed.
You mean the appeal?
I'm certain.
The appeal?
Yes.
Okay. I'd just like to know the status of it, if we could.
Yes, sir.
All right, and, Mr. Washington, thank you for answering my questions. And let me just ask, Commissioners, are there any further questions?
Madam Vice Chair, this is Delton Powers again.
Commissioner Powers?
Thank you. Mr. Washington, I'm a bit confused. Commissioner Williams asked you about the 100-mile limit. At the same time, you testified that you wanted to provide services in 46 counties. Sumter to Greenville is 159 miles. Sumter to Beaufort's 120-something miles. Don't you think you would need insurance that covered you statewide?
Yes, that's a requirement by Progressive once we give them the actual approval of our we have a quote right now with several counties, but the Progressive will not cover us unless we actually take statewide. It's a little bit more expensive, but that's what we would do. Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to understand that. Thank you very much.
Did I hear someone else, another commissioner?
Yes, Madam Vice Chair, this is Commissioner Caston. One more question I meant to ask last time.
Please go ahead.
Mr. Washington, I meant to ask you this last time, so I apologize. On page 7 of 10 of the application, item 3, are there currently any outstanding judgments against the applicant? Both yes and no are checked. Clearly there is, but is that just an oversight?
It is.
I assume you would want to amend that.
Correct.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Caston, are you asking for a late filed exhibit?
Well,
Or does the testimony clarify for you?
that would be fine. He clarified it, so
Okay.
if
All right,
that's satisfactory to the court, that's fine with me.
Thank you. Anything else from you, from Commissioner Caston?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioners? Mr.
Madam
Washington?
Vice Chair Felder?
Commissioner Williams?
Thank you. I'm confused as to what has been filed, and so I've got a question first for you, and then perhaps for Mr. Washington. Do we have an amended? We have an original application. We have a revised application. Was there an amended application that came in last night?
No, I believe, Mr. Sal, would you like to explain what was filed last night? I believe, well, let me just say, I think it was a tariff, it was a bill of lading, and it was, looks like the initial brief of the appellant in the appeal. Is there anything else,
Okay.
Mr. Sal?
The only other exhibit that was filed last night was in regards to the box truck. But you're correct, it was an amended bill of lading, amended tariff.
I'm sorry, what was the other, what did you just say was filed? Something about a box truck? I don't know that I've seen that.
Yes, Your Honor.
What, tell me again?
It was in regard to the equipment. Mr. Washington testified that he was in talks to purchase a box truck for his fleet.
Okay, we're looking, I think they're looking at the DMS now to see if we have that. Well, if we don't, we'll notify you in just a second. We're not seeing that, where that was filed. Do you want to submit that as a late filed exhibit?
I can, Your Honor, if you think necessary.
It's your case.
I don't think, based on what we've done today, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Williams, does that answer your questions? Do you have anything further?
I do have something further. I want to ask if it would be appropriate for a final updated application, because the application that I'm looking at, it's got the minor situation that Commissioner Caston just talked about, but it's also got that. It's my understanding that the page 5 of 10 description of equipment shows GMC 2000. The weight has not been revised, but Mr. Washington did clarify what that meant. But I think just identifying what the empty weight is of that vehicle, and then I don't know procedurally, should that vehicle be on there if it's not been purchased yet?
Mr. Sal, would you file, and this will be hearing exhibit 6, I think. Would you file a corrected, revised application, just correcting all of the these little errors? It needs to be in full. It needs to include all the attachments that are required. The revised application did not include all the attachments, and you can put your corrected tariff, your corrected bill of lading. That way, everything would be in one place. So we'll mark that as hearing exhibit 6, and it will be a corrected, amended, for lack of a better term, application. And I apologize if this causes issues, but it does need to have signatures. I know on the revised one, the signatures were very difficult to read. But that'll be hearing exhibit number 6. Anything else, Commissioner Williams?
In that updated, corrected, revised application, I think page 3 of 10 also needs to be looked at, because I think the testimony to
everything that was corrected from the stand needs to be corrected in this revised corrected application.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is that clear? Any questions?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Washington, thank you for your testimony this morning. You may step down from the stand.
Thank you, ma'am.
And Ms. DeSalle, now we will get to the affidavit. And let me see where I put mine. You submitted an affidavit, is that correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
And you would like that as part of the record?
Yes, Your Honor.
And the affidavit is of Patricia Andrews, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
That will be marked as hearing exhibit 7 and then received into the evidence of the case. Anything further, Ms. DeSalle?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. We will move to the Office of Regulatory Staff. Ms. Pittman.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Jenny Pittman for ORS. ORS did not file testimony in this docket, but yesterday on December 16th, we did file a letter stating that we find, based on our review, that the applicant meets the requirements to be a household good, Class E household goods mover in this state. At this time, I'd like to move our December 16th, 2020 letter as the next hearing exhibit.
The ORS review letter will be marked for identification as hearing Exhibit 8 and entered into the record of the case.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I do have Mr. Thomas McGill here with me, should the commissioners have any questions. Slight technical difficulties, but he is here if you'd like for me to put him on the stand.
Yes, ma'am. Please put Mr. McGill on the stand.
Okay. Doing a little bit of shuffling, but he, calling Mr. McGill to the stand, and here we go. Mr. McGill, please state your name for the record.
Thomas McGill.
I believe the court reporter will swear you in now.
Mr. McGill, will you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good morning, Mr. McGill. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm fine. Mr. McGill, can you tell me if ORS looked into the nature of the bankruptcy case or the judgment that was referenced in the application?
We did look into both of those, and with the bankruptcy case that has been thrown out, as well as the other civil issue, and how that is still pending. But in that review, we did not see that would be an issue to keep us from being able to say this applicant is fit, willing, and able.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McGill. Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. McGill?
Chairman Belzer?
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. McGill, I would like for you to talk some about where you went to investigate and to make your assessment, and that really comes from the different addresses that we've been given and a desire to understand where Mr. Washington will be working from.
Yes, ma'am. Whenever I met with Mr. Washington, I met him at the Sumter address, which is where he will keep his trucks. It was there that I looked at the equipment that he had. Obviously, as he mentioned in his testimony, the truck was not there because that is pending this hearing in order to be purchased. But I did look through all of his moving equipment and had the dollies and the straps and all that equipment that we would see that would be necessary. I did not go to the King Street address, and the reason for that was he was still in the process of closing on that property. But it's my understanding that that's where his office location will be set up, and the truck lot will be in Sumter, where he'll keep his equipment.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you, Mr. McGill. You may stand down.
Thank you.
Ms. Pittman, do you have anything further?
Nothing further from ORS. Thank you.
Okay. I apologize. Mr. McGill, wait a minute. Ms. DeSalle, I didn't give you the opportunity to cross-examine. Do you have any questions for Mr. McGill?
I do not, Your Honor.
Okay, I apologize for that oversight, please. Okay, Mr. McGill, you may stand down. Ms. DeSalle, do you have anything else to bring before us?
No, Your Honor, I do not.
Okay. Well, thank you, and Mr. Washington and Ms. Pittman, thank you, and Mr. McGill for your presentations today. We will close this hearing and await late filed exhibits. Thank you very much. Have a good day and a good holiday as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.